Today we're going to be digitizing a logo sent to us by a customer. She wants this logo to be stitched out as a left chest onto her polo uniform shirts. The logo is for a resume company. Let's begin in Hatch. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set up our hoop size. I have my hoop sizes programmed into my Hatch program. Once I come into Hatch, I can select the machine that I'm going to stitch to, and then I can select the hoop size. So today we're going to be using the 5.5 Mighty Hoop. Okay, so our next step would be to grab the image that the customer has provided, and then to shrink it down to a portion that would fit within the Mighty Hoop based off of the measurements that the customer wants it stitched out at. So Rachel asked that her logo be stitched at 3 inches wide. So right here we're going to go into the width. We're going to change the width to 3, and I think there's a little bit of a gap here on the sides. You can see here the space. So I'm actually going to set this design at 3.25 to account for that gap. And then I'm going to drag it into the Mighty Hoop frame here, and I'm going to begin to digitize it. I always like to zoom in when I'm digitizing, that way I can get a sense of what's going on. So my first step here, the easiest thing to do to start with is this bottom section here, because we can do this with a shape. So you would come into your Digitized folder. You can pick a rectangle shape. We're gonna do this as a tatami stitch, which is basically your fill stitch in the background. You're gonna do a tatami. I like to digitize in different colors, something different from what the logo is in. That way I can see the difference. So I'm gonna pick pink. And I'll come in here and just kind of do a drag to the area where you want it, and double click. So now we have our fill. You can switch to true view, and the true view will allow you to see through. And then what we're going to do, we're going to find a font that resembles this text that's already in the logo. So we're going to come down to, we're going to go up to lettering, and we're going to type in resumes by Rach. No, by Ray. Resumes by Ray. This looks like a Times New Roman type of font, so I'm just going to go through my fonts. I'm going to get down here to Times. I think I'm going to do Times Small because it's going to be fairly small stitched out. And then we're going to change this color to a yellow so we can see it. And then we can either change the size here at 3 inches, or we can line it up. I think it's got to be a little bit smaller than 3 inches. You can also just drag and drop. Oops, that's changing the orientation. The black squares will drag and drop. All right, and then once we have this in a position that looks close, what we can do is we can stretch the height of the logo, of the letters. I think we're going to be a little bit long. It's not a perfect fit, but we can shrink it down a little bit. One thing to remember when digitizing is that it doesn't have to look exactly as it did in the photo, because a lot of times, not a lot of times, but in all actuality, the person doesn't have this photo to go by. They're just going to see the thread stitched out. So to me, this actually looks good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the colors to match her design. So we're going to be stitching that out in a navy blue. Although this looks a little green on my screen, let me find a blue that makes more sense. The colors on screen actually don't matter, because once it depends on what colors you put on your machine. And then this is going to be stitched out in white. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to digitize the scribble. So what I'll do is I'll click on digitize, and I'll come to digitizing blocks. And digitizing blocks work in a left to right pattern. So we're going to click first block, so we go left, we go right, left, and then we're going to right click for a curve. So right, left. I'm using all right clicks because I want this to curve. I'm actually going to zoom in a little more so you can see it better. Right, left. And now that we're straightening up here, I'm just going to straighten up with a left click here and a left click here. As you can see, the path adjusted slightly here. And we're going to do a click, left click here, and press enter. We're going to change this to a satin stitch. And I actually do manual spacing because I find it looks a little bit neater. Oh, one thing I forgot to do, I forgot to adjust my auto fabric. And that will adjust my underlay in Hatch automatically for me. So then we're going to pick back up on the other side of the scribble. So back to the digitizing blocks, satin stitch, and you're going to go left click, right click, left click, right click. And I'm going to do a right click and another right click because it's slightly curved here. Right click, 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 and then I'm going to end with a left click and another left click, and I'm going to press enter. I'm going to select my graphic and I'm going to click down to manual spacing. So that looks good to me. And I'm going to change the color to navy. And I'm going to change the color on the other side to navy. And then what I'll do here, I'll branch these two items together so that when it's stitching out on the embroidery machine, it doesn't stitch and then stop, pull the thread away, and then start stitching again. We want it all to stitch seamlessly. So what I'll do is I'll grab both graphics, I'll come down and I'll select branching. And as you can see right here on the bottom of the screen, it says enter your entry point. So my entry point for this stitch will be right here. Okay, so I'm gonna make this navy because the file calls for it to be navy. In Hatch, your previously used colors are located down at the bottom with little squares in each corner. So we're gonna pick the Parisian blue, since that's the color that we stitched the rectangle in. So now let's work on this big pen. All right, so we're gonna go to digitizing. I'm gonna do digitize close shape. As you can see, enter point 1. So left click, and I'm gonna do left clicks for straight lines, right clicks for curves. So as we start to curve here, I'll start to do my right clicks just to follow the path. As you can see, as I right click, the curve will kind of automatically align itself. Right here at this corner, we want a sharp point, so I'm going to right click. And then I'm going to, sorry, I wanted to left click. I left clicked here to keep the sharp point. And then I'm going to left click here again. So now I have two straight lines in each corner. I will right click for a curve here, right click for another curve, and as you can see, the curve is lining up based off of where you place your clicks. I'm going to left click here because we're ending the curve and now we have straight line, so left again, right for this slight curve, left here in the corner for the sharp point, and then I'm going to left click here because we want the corner to be sharp. So left click, right click, left click, left click, right click, left click, left, right, left. We're gonna continue here. I'm actually gonna right click for a curve, right click here again, and then I'm gonna left click here at the sharp corner, left click, right click, right click, right, oops, sorry, I should do a left click here, left, I'll do the left click a little higher up so we can have a sharp corner, left click, left click, left, 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 and I'm going to start to right click over here because we're going to, this line bends ever so slightly. And you see I'm kind of losing my way here a little bit, but once I can also press backspace to step back and right click a little higher up to keep the path. I'm going to zoom in with the scroll of the mouse. It's kind of hard following this file because it's very pixelated. So for the rest of this, I'm going to just keep left clicking. And then when I get to a little bit of space, I'll just press enter and it'll close my points. And so now we have the feather. We need to change this feather to a tatami stitch. And then I'm going to put my true view back on. And I'm going to digitize a hole for the inside of the feather pen. So we're going to come down to digitize hole. And we're going to start, as you see, enter point 1 of hole 1. So I'm going to left click, and just follow the path as we did digitizing the outside. Right click for a slight curve. I'm going to make this hole a little bit wider than what I see on the screen, just as my own preference. That's a left click, left click, left click, right click here on this slight curve, right click, right click, right click, right, and now I'm going to go back to left clicks as we're getting down to this corner. I'm going to press enter from here. It just closed up my hole, and press enter again. So now if you turn off your true view, you can see it a little bit. It'll show better. It will show better when you stitch it out. But we also have to adjust the shape, the stitch direction. So this little line here is your stitch direction. We're going to stitch this on a straighter angle. So you can't really see it here well because it's just the layout of the, it's a very small graphic, so you can't really see the hole as well as you would like. But we're going to stitch this out. We're going to see what it looks like. So I'm going to export my design as a PNP. And I'm going to take this over to the machine and we're going to see how this stitches out.
Let's go, Mommy.